All right, so we're going to talk about dividing scientific notation. So the first thing we do is move over the decimal one place to the right to make it into whole numbers. So we move the decimal place. So we move the decimal place one place to the right. So if it has a decimal, if it's like 2.4 or something, move it over to the right to make a whole number. And when you do that, you subtract 1. Subtract 1 from exponent. So from the exponent, then we divide the whole numbers. Now that they're both whole numbers, divide them. So divide the whole numbers. Subtract the exponents because we're dividing. And then one thing that you have to be careful with your signs. Be careful with your signs and when you are taking away from a negative exponent. I keep on going off the page. Okay, so be careful when you are taking away from a negative exponent. All right, so looking at this, the first thing we do is, are there decimals here or here? No. So then we divide those numbers. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. We leave the times 10. And then we subtract our exponents. So what we do is 9 minus negative 5. So remember, anytime I see subtraction, I do keep, change, which makes this positive, which makes this positive. So this is really 9 plus 5, which is then 14. Okay, so remember, keep, change, or sometimes you might hear it as slash. All right, so let's do one more together. Let's do this one. So the first thing we have to do is look, do we have decimals here? We do have decimals, so I have to move this over to the right to make this a 24 times 10. And remember, when I move it over, I subtract 1, so this is really 8. And 6 times 10 to the 3. So now I see, okay, let's do 24 divided by 6. I get 4 times 10. And then now I subtract my exponents. And what is 8 minus 3? That's 5. So then that's 5. Okay. So I want you to pause the video. And I want you to try A and B on your own right now. So pause right now and try A and B. All right, so now that you've done those, you should have gotten 2 times 10 to the 14 and 1 times 10 to the 6. So I think would be helpful if we remembered that if there's no exponent, it's always raised to the 1 power. All right, so I'm going to do one more with you, and then I'm going to let you do D. So again, we have decimals now, so remember we need to move it over. When we move it over, we need to subtract 1. So this is really 12 times 10 to the negative 3 over 3 times 10 to the negative 4. And then again, we divide our whole numbers, which we get 4. And then we subtract our exponents, which we get negative 3 minus negative 4. And remember, we have to do keep, change. So now it's negative 3 plus 4, which actually gives us a positive 1. So then my answer is just this. Okay, if you want to write that 1, that's fine too. All right, so now I want you to pause real quick and try D on your own. All right, so hopefully you gotten 3 times 10 to the 12th. So that's our basic steps to dividing scientific notation. However, it might also ask you something else, okay? So there could be questions that ask you how many times smaller or how many times larger, okay? So with those, the first thing you need to do is set up a division problem. So you must set up a division problem, just like we had up top. So we have to set up a division problem in fraction form. So just like we had up top. When we get down, I'll kind of give you a little easy way to look at it, or know that the biggest exponent value goes on top. Okay, so the one with the biggest exponent is in the top of the fraction. Then we do our regular process, divide the whole numbers. Okay, divide the whole numbers, subtract the exponents. Okay, and remember to watch your signs. So be careful when you're subtracting with negatives and all that stuff. Last thing, so we don't leave it in scientific notation. So we write our answer. So no matter how big or how small it is, we write our answer in standard form. So what I mean by that is, like, instead of 2 times 10 to the 2, we would write that as 200. Okay? So let's review how to, well, not let's review, but let's talk about how to do how many times smaller and then how many times larger. Okay? So remember, we put it in fraction form, so we're going to have a fraction. And then we put whichever one has the largest exponent. So we have a 4 versus a 6. So we put the 6 on top. So this is 4 times 10 to the 6th, and then 2 times 10 to the 4th. And then, just like before, now we divide our whole numbers, and we get 2. We keep our times 10n, and then we subtract our exponents. I'm going to do that below. 6 minus 4 gives us 2. So now this is 2 to the 10th. So remember to go from scientific notation to non-scientific notation. These are pretty much our zeros at the end. So this is 200 times smaller. Okay, because that's what 2 times 10 to the n means, or 10 to the 2. All right, let's do one more together. Then I'm going to let you do the next two on your own. Okay, so we have to figure out which has the bigger exponent, 5 or 2. Okay, remember we have to write it in fraction form. So in this case, the 5's on top. So 9 times 10 to the 5th, 3 times 10 to the 2, divide our whole numbers, and we get 3 times 10. And then we have to look at our exponents, 5 and 2. So we do 5 minus 2 is 3. So we have 10 to the 3rd. And then our answer is actually 3,000 times. Okay? And I got that just by converting that to standard form. All right, so I want you to pause the video and try A and B on your own. Okay, so pause and try A and B on your own for me. All right, so hopefully you put them in the right places. So your positive 2 should be on top and the negative 2 exponent should be on the bottom. Then, of course, you just divide your whole numbers. Be careful when you're subtracting. You should get 4, which means that it's 10,000 times. I think B was a little bit more complicated because you had two negatives. What you have to keep in mind that the smaller the negative number is, the actual bigger it is, or vice versa. The larger the negative, the smaller it is. Okay, so that's why -8's on top. And then when you subtract, you should just get a 1, which means that it's 10 times larger. All right, so let's go to the back and let's do it as word problems, okay? So now we have some word problems on the next page. Okay, so with these word problems, nothing really changes. So we still put it in fraction form, and we still put the one with the larger exponent on top. So 1 times 10 to the 18th, 1 times 10 to the 15th. We still divide our whole numbers, which is how we get 1 divided by 1 is 1. And then we still subtract our exponents. So 18 minus 15 is 3. And then now we still put that in standard form. So 1,000 times larger is what we're asking. Okay. So that's our answer. All right, so I want you to try the next two on your own. So I want you to pause and try the next two. When you unpause, B will be up there, but C won't, and we'll go over C in class. Okay? So I want you to try the next two, B and C. Again, B will be, the answer will be up, but C won't, okay? All right, so there was a little trick to B. It's that we couldn't do 1 divided by 5 because that would give us a decimal. So what we needed to do was move our decimal point over to make it into a 10. And then since we moved it over, we subtract 1. And that's why I did 6 minus 4. Okay? All right, and then C, remember, we'll do in class together.